This one right here is actually not that bad. Many, if not most battle shonen manga love featuring some dark and at times even disturbing themes as their series go on. But one thing that gets pretty apparent in modern titles is that the genre as a whole is noticeably shifting. Establishing a cruel, dark or gritty world and clear stakes early on seems like it soon could become the new standard, and titles like Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen and Hell's Paradise that all don't hold back when it comes to weirdness and violence show how successful this type of storytelling can be if done correctly. Which brings me to the manga I wanna talk about today, that not only checks the boxes dark, gritty and weird, but also stays surprisingly true to some old established battle shonen tropes most of us enjoy. How I can best describe it, dystopian love child of Hell's Paradise and Seraph of the End. Wild Strawberry by Ide Yonemoto. 36 years ago, on April 26, plants engulfed Tokyo. The overgrowth brought the metropolis to a near standstill. People had many theories about what caused it. Global warming? Maybe. But to this day, no one knows why. All we know is this one thing. The plants have evolved to absorb nutrients from humans. The parasitic organisms are called Chinka, human flowers. Kingo, an optimistic young boy, and his reserved little sister Kayano have but one shared dream. Visiting a family restaurant with people they can call exactly that. Family. When the two orphans finally got adopted, their wish does not seem that far away from coming true. But little did they know that the restaurant will be their new family home and the food on their table themselves, as they find out that their new parents were actually Chinka in disguise. And just a second away from getting promised Neverlanded by a giant set of uncanny looking teeth, the two children get saved by none other than the Chinka that just bloomed out of Kayano's eyeball. Ever since that day, Kingo's life consists of just scraping by and hiding his sister from other humans. And more importantly, the so-called Flower Funeral Force, whose mission it is to exterminate every single Chinka host out there. Well, you can probably guess what will happen next. On just a regular depressing day at the job, a notification comes in. Another Chinka bloom got detected. Where? Only one place possible. Once Kingo arrives at their apartment, he sees exactly the one thing he didn't want to. Kayano's Chinka blooming once again. With the Fire Funeral Force already there, he starts begging them to not kill his sister and tries explaining that she can control her Chinka and therefore doesn't pose a threat to anyone. That pretty much backfired though, and Kingo sees only one more option left. A good old hostage taking. Fast forward, Kingo gets killed. His sister becomes enraged, but true to her brother's words, does not murder anyone. And as we soon find out at the end of this long first chapter, manages to use her brother as a host in order to save his life. Bro not only got almost promised Neverlanded, but also Chainsaw Man in the same chapter. After all these traumatizing experiences, he wakes up in a rather unpleasant facility, where this smart looking guy tells him what happened to his sister. One mental breakdown later, the Flower Funeral Force arrives and Kingo, for his crime of harboring a Chinka and now being the host of one, is to be executed via incineration. Well, that doesn't happen. Instead, another Chinka blooms. This dude dies and our currently nameless scientist tells Kingo that his sister wanted to save his life, even at the cost of her own, and that he needs to live on for her sake as well. And then he gets eaten. Just kidding. Instead, we get an absolutely sick looking colored panel, the revelation that Kayano is still kinda alive inside Kingo's body, and a new goal for our protagonist. Bringing back his sister, whatever it takes. Oh, and we also finally get a name for our new friend, Maki. Directly after that little introduction, the two encounter a seemingly hungry child, and being the good guys they are, Kingo and Maki give her some food and follow the little girl back home. What could possibly go?
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
A quick reminder for everyone, if the world ever becomes a dystopia, never trust a child, because its parents might turn out to be carnivorous zombie plants that wanna eat your intestines. And that is basically what this little side trip was all for. For the first time, we see Kingo use his new gained power out of his own free will, while he casually obliterates the child's parents in front of its eyes. But those powers also attract one specific kind of group. Of course, it's the Flower Funeral Force. Or in that case, the Special Flower Funeral Force. Or in that case, a high school girl with a huge ass weapon and a sunflower. A perverted sunflower, to be exact. But not gonna lie, she looks pretty badass. More importantly, this girl introduces us to Wild Strawberry's power system, Full Bloom. A way of using a Chinka's power by more or less sacrificing your own life force. And then she casually slices a building in half. Kingo again tries to calm the situation by trying to explain to her that Kayano would never harm anyone and is a friend, just like the Chinka she uses to fight with. Big mistake. Relieving him of a tooth and further making her hate against the Chinka clear, the chances of cooperating are slim. Kingo, who tells her that he wants to reach the mother Chinka in order to turn his sister back into a human, at least manages to get one interesting information out of her, that only members of the Special Flower Funeral Force can go near it. And in good old shonen main character manner, Kingo immediately decides that joining this elite group will fix that issue. How will that end up, I wonder? After a short fight with some immaculate paneling, an included hair makeover, and a short inner dialogue to contain his sister's anger, we found yet another new friend. Yay! We are not allowed to catch a break though, because another member of the Special Force arrives and asks Kingo the simple question of whether he's human or Chinka. Imagine almost dying out of exhaustion and then some headshot with a tiny dog shows up and gives you a fucking captcha to solve. Well, at least he gives him some water, explaining that using the powers of a Chinka quickly leads to dehydration. He also doesn't really get an answer to his question, but a heartfelt thank you seems to be enough for him. We also get his name, Makoto. And we can't end the chapter without showing him in action as well. The group then makes their way to the Special Forces headquarters, where Kingo gets introduced to the 7th Squad leader, Higishima. And following a nice little welcoming party, plus not the best first impression you can give your future boss, he gets told that in order to become part of the Special Flower Funeral Force, I swear if I have to say this shit one more time, he needs to be in full control of the Chinka inside of him. And what happens next? You have to find out yourself. With this little overview, we've covered most of the first 6 to 7 chapters' main events, and I think that's a pretty good point to stop and talk about the things that make this manga very interesting and enjoyable, and those that hold it back a little. First of all, the pacing. For everyone that loves fast-paced manga, the first few chapters of White Strawberry might be right up your alley. But that being said, at times it feels a little too fast-paced. Almost like it wants to speed through all the shonen tropes as quickly as possible. But to its defense, this gets better after the chapters I talked about in this video. The manga eventually does start spending more time on its characters, but also likes to immediately jump back into action at any given opportunity. And although the balance between spending time on characters and kicking someone's ass is a little off, I found myself enjoying it that way quite a bit. What's important to get out of the way though, the story itself and how the world functions, at least so far, is pretty predictable. You can clearly see where the inspirations are coming from, but it's exactly that mix of inspirations that make it interesting, at least in my opinion. There's a reason for why we enjoy those other works that White Strawberry takes from, so why not just combining some of the good parts and make something new out of it? Being predictable doesn't always equal being bad, and although you can see one of its seemingly big revelations from a mile away, everything around it, like the setting, the power system and the dark vibes, fit together so well that you can excuse a few chapters of predictability. And to not lose you at this point, it is not like everything this manga does is already clear beforehand. There have been 1 or 2 moments where I sat there and thought, wait, what? But where it definitely shines the most is its overall presentation. The art style is simply beautiful. You can see that Yonemoto takes enough time to make sure that it shines, especially in those frequent action moments that are a blast to read thanks to this manga's overall clean and dynamic paneling. Also, the world's theme of being taken over by plants, although not really a new thing in fiction, works incredibly well with the darker tones of White Strawberry's story, and the contrast of exactly those dark and violent themes in comparison to how bright and colorful everything actually is, as we can see in the occasional colored panels, makes me wonder about how visually stunning yet creepy a good anime adaptation of this could look. At the end of the day, White Strawberry is a battle shonen like many other, but the direction it's going is straight upwards. Yeah, you have your typical shonen tropes that you'll either like or dislike, but you can really see and feel how it keeps improving chapter by chapter. It won't revolutionize the genre, but if you want to read a beautifully dark, action-packed manga that still has good potential of becoming bigger than it is right now, and don't mind characters and story, although not bad, taking a while to shine through, definitely give it a shot. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and criticisms about this manga down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my stuff in the future, and activate the bell for a one-time protection against stubbing your toe. As always, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, peace!